Good evening and welcome to 365 Days of Stories with the Omer, day 51. And I'm continuing the story of the Pilgrim of Love, or the legend of Ahmed Kamil, Prince Ahmed Kamil. Now, as you might remember, he had gone to Cordova, where he was going to be seeking this traveler. And he found out once he got there and arrived at the mosque where the palm tree was, that the traveler was indeed a green parrot who'd been all over the place, gone into palaces all throughout the area, knew many, many people, and was said to know the human language. So this parrot, he could speak like a person and knew poetry and wise things from faraway lands. And so he was a favorite to have around because he was very entertaining. And so he'd been everywhere, and when the prince had gotten there, there were people around him. He'd ask somebody about him, and this person just waxed on and on about how incredible the parrot was. And Ahmed had been really discouraged to see that this great traveler was indeed a parrot. But remember, he was dealing with birds, so birds knew birds, and they had decided that, or the raven had decided that this was his best option. Well, he decided he would meet with the parrot in private and arranged for that. And when he did, he had scarcely begun talking about what quest he was on when the parrot just broke out in this croaky laugh. And Ahmed was just taken into not such a great place because, he was already struggling to, find this princess. Didn't know really what kind of quest he was on. He was, doubtful at times that any good was going to come of what he was up to. And so it was hard for him. And plus, he'd been traveling for days and days. Many, 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 many miles. And with the company of an owl. So here he is, and he's brought to tears almost. And the parrot can see that he's brought some hardship to Ahmed. And so he says, I didn't mean to do that, but it's just that every time I hear of somebody and they start talking about love, I can't help myself. I just start laughing about it. It's just so out of style, the parrot said. Ahmed was like, wow. He turned to the parrot and said, how can you say that? Love is the great mystery in all of life. It's the be-all. It's the beginning and the end. It's what brings everything into being. How can you be so turned off to love? And the parrot says, my young man, you have to understand. I'm a wit. I'm not interested in these kinds of things, pretty ladies and that kind of thing. It's like it just doesn't mean anything to me. I've been all over the place. I've seen beautiful women in all of my travels, and I'm just happy to know what I know and be knowledgeable as I am. Well, I will tell you, in that moment, Ahmed missed his friend the dove more than anything, because the dove seemed to understand, had seemed to understand. Well, the prince didn't lose much time before he had pulled out the small little portrait, and he just asked it. he changed his whole tone, and he said, my well-known traveler, known to all parts of the world, might it be that you would recognize the image, the real person that this is painted from? And the parrot took the image in his claw and, one of his feet, and he looked at it with one eye, and then he shifted and looked at it with the other eye. And he said, I've seen pretty women everywhere, like I had said. And, but wait. I do know this princess. It is, what is her name? The Princess Algondra. It's the princess, Algondra. Yes, that's it. It's the Princess Algondra. And she is, my prince, the daughter of the Christian king that rules over the city of Toledo. Oh, Ahmed repeated the princess's name. The Princess Algondra. The Princess Algondra. And how, my dear friend, how might we get there? Oh, he said, well, you must go to the city of Toledo, but the problem is that she is, no one has even seen her because of the meddling of some silly astrologers, something about her 17th birthday, and she has to be kept isolated until then, and so the chances of you seeing her are slim, but the chances of you gaining her as your love is even more slim. Well, the prince said, could you take me there? And the parrot was like, well, I am very busy. And Ahmed, he thought, I should just be honest here. And he said, I am a prince, and I will eventually be the king of Granada. And, you're helping me. Well, it could change the destiny of the entire world. Are you willing? And I will tell you that once I am in place as king, I would certainly consider having you somewhere in the court in some important position. Well, the pride and ego of this little bird was roused, and he said, well, okay, let's talk about that. And before long, they'd come up with some kind of arrangement. The parrot didn't want to do any kind of serious work, which the prince never had in mind anyway. But it was decided that the parrot would accompany the prince and the owl on the way to the city of Toledo, where the beautiful princess Algondra was kept. Off they went. As they left the town, the prince awakened the owl, and he thought that certainly these two birds would probably get on splendidly, and in no time at all, it would be just a merry trip that they would be on. But it was really quite the opposite. The owl was, he had to stop at every ruin, and he waxed on about what had happened there and the topography of the land, and the parrot was all about wisdom, kind of like important things to him, knowledge. And so anyway, they were soon bickering back and forth about any subject that was brought up. But the prince kept the journey going and ignored those two birds and kept his eyes on the prize, as it might be said, and kept looking at the portrait of the princess and thinking about how much he longed to see her. So on they went and on they went. And they eventually got to a hill that overlooked the city of Toledo. And the owl began to go, oh my, here we are at the great city of Toledo. And in here, you will find some of the most incredible ruins that you will ever see anywhere. And the architecture, well, it displays a mix of both Christian and Muslim influences in such a way that around one corner, well, the parrot cut him off and said, forget about all that. This is not why we're here. If you will look right there, you will see the wall. And within that wall, you can see the palace. This is on the banks of, I believe it was the river Tigris. This walls, palace, and then these beautiful gardens. And the parrot said, there is where I met the princess Algondra. That is where she resides. That is where we should be putting our attention. Where you can imagine the prince. He tuned into that spot immediately and began to just look over it all with his eyes to see if he could see any movement, anything at all. But it was quite a long distance away, and he couldn't make out anything. There were trees, there were beautiful gardens. The river ran through this area where the princess Algondra was kept. And the wall went across the river in these two places. And still no one could get through. It was clear that no one could get through. But who did the prince, Ahmed, have for his helpers but birds? And Ahmed asked the parrot immediately, my dear friend, thank you. Thank you for bringing us here. Thank you for showing me where the princess lives. Could you please fly down to her and let her know that I am here, that Prince Ahmed is here, waiting to meet her. The parrot, in a very dignified and important way, flew off. Across the wall he went and into the gardens, and he flew from place to place, searching for the princess. And eventually he found her. She was crying, eyes filled with tears. And the parrot landed very close and began to speak to her. And as he did, she turned to look at him, and she was like amazed that here it was, the parrot was talking. But the thing that really got her was what he was saying. And he was saying, my princess, dry your eyes, for I come with great news that will pacify any of these sour moods that you're having, to bring tears to your eyes. And she's like, what can you, a parrot, do for me? How can you help me? You don't even know what I'm crying about. He said, I want you to know that the Prince Ahmed is here. He is here and has come to see you. Well, the princess, her eyes sparkled when she heard this. And she said, oh my, he's here. Please tell him that the words that he wrote to me, the poems, the things that he wrote and expressed are emblazoned in my heart. I long to see him as well. Please let him know this. But you must also let him know that tomorrow there is going to be a great tournament, and my hand will be offered to whoever is the victor in this. Please rush and tell him this. The parrot flies off, and we'll leave the story there and find out what Prince Ahmed is able to do. Thanks for joining. Have a good rest of your day or night.